The only VPN to prove multiple times in court that they have no record of your internet activity is private internet access. Each time the judge said, show us the person's internet activity, and private internet access said, sorry, we don't have it. Their systems are also regularly audited by Deloitte to verify the no-log policy. And it's the only VPN with open source code, so the whole world can see that nothing is being logged. Private internet access is giving my audience 83% off, which is just $203 a month, plus 4 extra months for free. Go to piavpn.com/DavidP. The link is down below. What a night in American politics. I dare say Donald Trump's performance at the debate last night against Kamala Harris, one of the worst debate performances in modern history. I had tempered my expectations. I went in assuming that, yes, Kamala Harris would win, but there would be some nervousness that would maybe temper her performance a bit. Yes, I expected Trump to lie and to fall apart, but I didn't expect that he would be furiously ranting and spitting and sweating and complaining the entire debate while failing to make any serious political points. His performance, a disaster. Her performance, completely fine, projecting an air of calm competence as a contrast to Trump leaning over the lectern, gripping it with white knuckles, and just spitting and complaining with his right eye swollen almost completely shut. It appears as though Tulsi Gabbard's debate prep of Trump was not the silver bullet that the Trump team hoped that it would be. Extremist Laura Loomer helping Trump to prepare did not really help him to be prepared to face Kamala Harris. Now, setting the tone for the entire event was Kamala Harris deciding she's going to shake Trump's hand. Trump lumbering onto the stage without even acknowledging her. Trump didn't want to do it. She forced the handshake on Trump. He was too petty to even meet her halfway.
Kamala Harris, let's have a good debate.
See, have fun.
Kamala Harris, let's have a good debate. And Trump often not even glancing over at the vice president, wanting to pretend she wasn't even there. And Kamala Harris came out of the gate prepared, strong, ready to go right up against Donald Trump.
And border security during this debate, but I would like to let Vice President Harris respond on the economy here.
Well, I would love to. Let's talk about what Donald Trump left us. Donald Trump left us the worst unemployment since the Great Depression. Donald Trump left us the worst public health epidemic in a century. Donald Trump left us the worst attack on our democracy since the Civil War. And what we have done is clean up Donald Trump's mess. What we have done and what I intend to do is build on what we know are the aspirations and the hopes of the American people. But I'm going to tell you all in this debate tonight, you're going to hear from the same old tired playbook, a bunch of lies, grievances, and name-calling.
And this immediately got under Donald Trump's skin. Trump was able to remain calm maybe 6 or 7 minutes. And then within minutes of the start of the debate, he was increasingly triggered, couldn't help himself but bringing up Kamala Harris's father, saying she and he are Marxists, and it went unhinged quickly. And if you're watching, you'll notice Kamala Harris staying very calm, smirking and grinning at the stupidity of what Trump is saying, and remaining the adult in the room, which worked very well for her.
I was going to send her a MAGA hat. She's gone to my philosophy, but if she ever got elected, she'd change it, and it will be the end of our country. She's a Marxist. Everybody knows she's a Marxist. Her father's a Marxist professor in economics, and he taught her well. But when you look at what she's done to our country, and when you look at these millions and millions of people that are pouring into our country monthly, where it's, I believe, 21 million people, not the 15 that people say, and I think it's a lot higher than the 21.
Yeah, I mean, how about 100 million? How about 1 billion people? It doesn't really matter. You're just lying at this point regardless. And Kamala Harris handling this really well. Trump was encouraged not to take the bait from her. and he failed. He took it every time. Kamala Harris was prepared to bait Trump. And one of Trump's biggest insecurities are his rallies. Not only the size of the crowd, but the fact that people get bored and people fall asleep and people leave. And Kamala Harris went right at Trump by making fun of his silly little rallies, and boy, did it work.
Instead of fixing a problem. And I'll tell you something, he's going to talk about immigration a lot tonight, even when it's not the subject that is being raised. And I'm going to actually do something really unusual, and I'm going to invite you to attend one of Donald Trump's rallies, because it's a really interesting thing to watch.
Oh, yeah.
You will see during the course of his rallies, he talks about fictional characters like Hannibal Lecter. He will talk about windmills cause cancer. And what you will also notice is that people start leaving his rallies early out of exhaustion and boredom. And I will tell you, the one thing you will not hear him talk about is you. You will not hear him talk about your needs, your dreams, and your desires. And I'll tell you, I believe you deserve a president who actually puts you first, and I pledge to you that I will.
Trump seething. And this was, okay, she mentioned his rallies. It shouldn't trigger that much. But indeed, it triggers him very much.
And Harris, thank you. President Trump, on that point, I want to get your response.
Well, I would like to respond.
Let me just ask, though, why did you try to kill that bill, and successfully so? That would have put thousands of additional agents and officers on the border.
First, let me respond as to the
Please.
rallies. She said people start leaving. People don't go to her rallies. There's no reason to go. And the people that do go, she's bussing them in and paying them to be there, and then showing them in a different light. So she can't talk about that. People don't leave my rallies. We have the biggest rallies, the most incredible rallies in the history of politics.
Yeah. And of course, this really gets under Trump's skin, because Trump knows that in arenas like in Philadelphia, Trump couldn't fill it, and days later, Kamala Harris filled the arena. Trump knows that nobody's getting paid to go to a Kamala Harris rally. They've tried pushing that one, but there is no evidence of that whatsoever. Now, in one of the stranger moments of the debate, Trump was asked about, remember when you said she used to be Indian, but she became black? And what it seems like is happening here is that Trump first is able to control himself and say what his campaign told him to say, but then he just goes back to the same thing from before. It's a wild, wild moment.
And Trump, thank you. I want to move on now to race and politics in this country. Mr. President, you recently said of Vice President Harris, quote, "I didn't know she was black until a number of years ago when she happened to turn black, and now she wants to be known as black." I want to ask a bigger picture question here tonight. Why do you believe it's appropriate to weigh in on the racial identity of your opponent?
I don't, and I don't care. I don't care what she is. I don't care. You make a big deal out of something. I couldn't care less. Whatever she wants to be is okay with me.
But those were your words, so I'm
I
asking.
I don't know. I mean, all I can say is I read where she was not black.
So there, he starts kind of just like, whatever, doesn't make any difference to me. But then he goes, no, I've been reading about it. I read she wasn't black, and then she's black all of a sudden.
That she put out, and I'll say that. And then I read that she was black, and that's okay. Either one was okay with me. That's up to her.
He's like, listen, she used to not be black and now she is, and that's fine. I don't have a problem with it. It's just she used to not be black and then she became black, essentially repeating the completely failed statement from the NABJ interview. Now, then, if you think that's wild, it got really crazy, where Trump brought up blacks eating cats. That's the way we're referring to this story that is completely debunked, of supposed undocumented Haitians, who, by the way, are not undocumented, in Springfield, Ohio, eating cats and dogs. Trump brings it up. Kamala Harris just laughs in his face.
In Springfield, they're eating the dogs, the people that came in. They're eating the cats. They're eating the pets of the people that live there. And
this is reality, folks. You're not going to all of a sudden wake up and be in your bed because this is a bad dream. This is reality.
This is what's happening in our country, and it's a shame. As far as rallies are concerned, as far as the reason they go is they like what I say. They want.
All right. So Trump bringing up the blacks eating cats conspiracy. And by the way, no, this is just a brief musical interlude. I think you might like this. Noah Garfinkel brilliantly pointed out on Twitter that Trump's claim about immigrants eating pets syncs up almost perfectly with the Peanuts theme song.
They're eating the dogs, the people that came in. They're eating the cats. They're eating the pets of the people that live there.
So beautifully done there by Noah Garfinkel. But now back to the debate. There was a moment you knew would come up that would be an opportunity for Kamala Harris to point out, this guy's been convicted of crimes. This guy's been found civilly liable for sexual assault. And she found that moment and she was ready for it.
Crime is down all over the world except here. Crime here is up and through the roof. Despite their fraudulent statements that they made, crime in this country is through the roof. And we have a new form of crime. It's called migrant crime. And it's happening at levels that nobody thought possible.
President Trump, as you know, the FBI says overall violent crime is actually coming down in this country. But Vice
Excuse me,
President
the
Harris,
FBI they were defrauding statements. They didn't include the worst cities. They didn't include the cities with the worst crime. It was a fraud. Just like their number of 818,000 jobs that they said they created turned out to be a fraud.
President Trump, thank you. I'll let you respond, Vice President Harris.
Well, I think this is so rich coming from someone who has been prosecuted for national security crimes, economic crimes, election interference, has been found liable for sexual assault, and his next big court appearance is in November at his own criminal sentencing. And let's be clear where each person stands on the issue of what is important about respect for the rule of law and respect for law enforcement. The former vice president called for defunding federal law enforcement, 45,000 agents, get this, on the day after he was arraigned on 34 felony counts.
Now, at this point, Trump's done. He's cooked. He's hanging by a thread, frustration taking over. And then Trump tries the wait a minute, I'm speaking, trying to sort of mimic a famous line from Kamala Harris in prior debates, and it just doesn't land.
She was big on defund the police. In Minnesota, she went out, wait a minute, I'm talking now, if you don't mind, please. Does that sound familiar?
Does that sound familiar? It just didn't work. It didn't work, and Trump unable to land even a single punch. Maybe stinging Trump the most was when Kamala Harris almost treating Trump like a pitiable little child. 81 million people fired him, and he's struggling to accept it.
I ask you about something that's come up in the last couple of days. This was a post from President Trump about this upcoming election just weeks away. He said, when I win, those people who cheated, and then he lists donors, voters, election officials, he says will be prosecuted to the fullest extent of the law, which will include long-term prison sentences. One of your campaign's top lawyers responded saying, we won't let Donald Trump intimidate us. We won't let him suppress the vote. Is that what you believe he's trying to do here?
Donald Trump was fired by 81 million people. So let's be clear about that. And clearly he is having a very difficult time processing that. But we cannot afford to have a president of the United States who attempts, as he did in the past, to upend the will of the voters in a free and fair election.
That one really, really bothered Trump, and then it was just over. The topic of Trump's health care plan came up, and it's like, oh my goodness, it's just adding insult to injury. Remember the health care plan that in August of 2020 would be out in 2 weeks that we never got? Trump was asked, so you still don't have it? And he goes, well, I have concepts of a plan.
So just a yes or no, you still do not have a plan?
I have concepts of a plan. I'm not president right now. But if we come up with something, I would only change it if we come up with something that's better and less expensive. And there are concepts and options we have to do that.
Right. It's been 4 years. He still doesn't know what he would do as far as healthcare goes, but he has concepts of a plan, which after 4 years and a month, he's still not turned into a plan. Finally, the pinnacle of frustration, Trump with a very gross, quiet, please.
Putin would be sitting in Moscow, and he wouldn't have lost 300,000 men and women, but he would have been sitting in Moscow, quiet, please. He would have been sitting
Quiet, please. So listen, you rarely see such a one-sided debate in American politics because no matter how indefensible the political positions of the major party candidates can sometimes be, by the time they make it to this debate stage, they've been, in a sense, vetted and filtered through the primary process and the selection of donors. And you don't get someone who's completely unable to participate in a conversation about politics. That's what you got with Trump, because that's what the Republican Party picked, because they've been completely held hostage by Trump. It backfired. And if you need more proof that it backfired, you need only see the panic on Fox News in the immediate aftermath of the debate. Let's talk about that next. If you want a sign that Kamala Harris brutalized Donald Trump last night, it's that in their post-debate coverage, Fox News completely panicked, blamed the moderators and ABC News for what happened. That's how you know that they know Trump has failed. Here is Martha McCallum on Fox News. Just listen.
Has or has not done as vice president. The question now is, how much does this move the needle?
Yeah, I mean, it has to be said that she was really never held to the fire.
Right.
She was not pressed by the moderators on her past positions and how she got from a very progressive, most progressive senator to where she is now. And that falls on ABC.
Right. Now, what they want you to believe is that because Kamala Harris wasn't fact-checked in the way that Trump was, it must have been bias. But what they aren't ready to consider is that Trump claimed to have won the 2020 election. And that got fact-checked because it's just an obvious and ridiculous lie. Kamala Harris didn't tell any lies like that. Trump said that you can do abortion after birth in some states. That's insane and obviously untrue. And it was fact-checked. So they're not willing to consider that the reason for some of those fact checks was that Trump was telling ridiculous lies. Sean Hannity attacked ABC, of course.
She certainly did.
Sean Hannity is in the spin room. Thoughts on this debate, Sean?
Disagree on other parts of what he said. I think the biggest loser in the debate, and we talked about this pre-debate, is ABC. The fact that we didn't get to fundamental, strong positions that Kamala Harris had taken on very deep and profound issues involving the economy and immigration. And
I recall that we did. But when all you can do is attack the network hosting the debate, you've lost. Jesse Waters could do no better than nobody won. It was just a bad debate. Nobody won.
Take us up on that.
Jesse, your thoughts?
I don't think the American people are watching and thinking any of these people won.
Oh, no. 2/3 of the American people believe Kamala Harris won.
This was rough. This was pretty intense at times. She started off shaky. She regained her footing. But I thought she was going to come out with some of these memorable lines.
Yeah. Jesse apparently watching some other debate than all of us watched. When you say nobody won, it's because your candidate lost. If you have any credible path to arguing that your candidate won, you don't say that it was a tie, that everybody lost. Laura Ingraham doubling down on the whining about ABC News as well.
Out and try to win those swing states, we should do it.
Yeah, I mean, I think at the end of all this, she prepared for a couple weeks. She moved the points a little bit on the betting markets. But in the end, we all know what we knew before, that ABC's goal tonight was to help Kamala Harris. And ABC did help Kamala Harris. Now,
there you go. Laura Ingraham saying that was their goal and they succeeded. Marco Rubio appeared briefly on Fox News and he said the debate was an embarrassment to journalism.
I walked over and tapping him on the back. He's my senator.
They were impressed. The reporters were impressed.
The biggest, I think, failure for the country tonight was ABC.
Yeah, it's an embarrassment. It's an embarrassment to journalism. I mean, it's on issue. I mean, there was times where they would say, Donald Trump, why did you do or say this horrible thing? And then the question to Kamala Harris is, what do you think about the horrible thing that Donald Trump did?
And of course, there were reverses of that as well. Kamala Harris, you used to believe this, now you believe that. What do you think? Oh, Donald Trump, what do you think about what she had to say? So certainly much of that in both ways. And then finally and hilariously, Dana Perino comes up with how you could think that Trump won. She says, if of the nearly 2-hour debate, you only watched Trump's first answer and his last one, you'd think he did okay.
If there's a grievance on that part, you'll see it. I do think that he won on points on his first answer about the economy, and then his last answer was good. So if you only watch those two parts, and if you're like first impression and last impression, you might leave with an impression that he did all right.
Yeah. Listen, if you only watch the first 90 seconds and the last 2 minutes, you might say Trump didn't completely fail. So Fox News running panicked cover for Trump, except for one guy on Fox News that was willing to tell some of the truth. Let's talk about that. Brit Hume, political analyst on Fox News, 81 years old. He's done it all. He's seen it all. He was willing to admit last night this debate was a disaster for Trump. After some attacks on Kamala Harris, Brit Hume lays it out. The most sober, the only sober analysis, even partially sober analysis that we got last night. Listen to this.
Her nominee, Tim Walz. This is a different person who was well prepped,
absolutely
well prepared, had answers, and knew where she was going.
Not only a different person from the person she was in that interview on CNN, but a different person from the absolute dunderhead so many of us thought she was. Her conduct as vice president, when she would come out with these ludicrous statements that started nowhere and ended in midair.
Unburdened by the past.
Unburdened by common sense. And here she was tonight. She was composed. She was prepared. She kept her cool. She saw advantages. She took them. She baited him successfully, which is the story of the debate, in my view. So she came out ahead in this, in my opinion. No doubt. Now, whether it'll move the needle in the race, very few things seem to, but that remains to be seen.
So listen, and we're going to look at one more clip of Brit Hume here. Brit Hume seems to have some desire to be considered a serious political analyst, and so he's not doing what the rest of the people on Fox News did. And this is as critical a review of Donald Trump's performance as you're going to find on Fox News.
Look, make no mistake about it. Trump had a bad night. He rose to the bait repeatedly when she baited him, something I'm sure his advisors had begged him not to do. In the first debate when Biden attacked him, he just kept his cool and kept going. In this debate, he rose to a debate, and we heard so many of the old grievances that we'd long thought that Trump had learned were not winners politically. And there they all were, talking about how he didn't lose the election and all that. I mean, my sense is that she came out of this in pretty good shape. Now, how long this will last and is anybody's guess. But for tonight, at least, this was pretty much her night.
You're saying?
Yeah. That's we found a needle in a haystack amidst fake panic and unhinged attacks on ABC News. We found the one analysis from Fox that makes sense. Now, Brit Hume is right. We don't know what effect this will have. Just as a reminder, Kamala Harris was leading by 1.1 going into the debate. 7-10 days from now, we'll see what the impact is. Make sure you're subscribed to the YouTube channel. We breached 2.5 million YouTube subscribers in the middle of the night. Nice little number to wake up to. Let's push on to 3 million. We'll take a quick break and be right back. You watch YouTube, you listen to podcasts, you've heard a ton of ads for VPNs, but all VPNs are pretty much the same except for one. Our sponsor, Private Internet Access, is the only VPN that can confirm your internet activity is not being logged. Their software is fully open source, so you can see that traffic isn't being logged. Their systems are also independently audited by the Big Four accounting firm Deloitte to confirm nothing is being logged, and they've demonstrated multiple times in court they have no record of user activity. Everyone should use a VPN when they connect to the internet. Hides your IP address so governments and big tech can't track you, and you can access Netflix and Hulu content not normally available in your home country. Private Internet Access has servers in 91 different countries and all 50 U.S. states. You can protect all of your devices with just a single account, and Private Internet Access is giving my audience 83% off comes out to just $203 a month plus 4 extra months for free. Go to piavpn.com/DavidP. The link is in the description. The David Pakman Show is primarily sponsored by our audience, not by Russian influencer cash directed from RT through intermediaries with strange names and YouTube channels with no views. I know that's really specific, but it's really relevant right now. I invite you to grab a membership at joinpakman.com. And through the end of the week, you can use our new debate-related coupon code, Mute Trump. Mute Trump. All one word, no space, Mute Trump. We all know what it means. You can use it at joinpakman.com. Donald Trump's debate performance was so bad last night that afterwards, he desperately started wandering around the spin room, just speaking to random reporters. He seemed dazed and he seemed confused. Now, he did do one more formal interview as part of his dazed and confused experience in the spin room. He sat down with Sean Hannity, and he seemed to say, in the next few months, we're going to have a lot of rape and murder. I don't know what he knows, but it was a weird thing to say.
It's killing our economy. Terrorists, and we do have the murders and the rapes and the violent crimes.
Oh, and you haven't seen anything yet. Wait till you see it in the months to come.
You know what scares me, and I've said this on the air, is by having open borders, unvetted illegal immigrants, that I don't think it's a matter of if, I think it's a matter of when that this country is going to be attacked.
If you look at Springfield, Ohio, look at what's happening there. You look at Aurora in Colorado.
So there is Trump once again alluding to the black-seeding cats conspiracy that's been completely debunked. But Trump, I guess, predicting more rape and murder in the coming months. How he would know that, I don't know. Then it got really bad. Trump was filmed. This is like, who comes up with this stuff? Trump was filmed wandering around the spin room, just yelling out that he won, citing internet surveys, random internet surveys from right-wing websites. This is not the confident behavior of someone who believes I just did something really well.
It was the best debate I've ever personally that I've had. We're getting polls that show 90.
And I realize Trump's off mic and you can't hear everything perfectly. It's because Trump's just walking around randomly yelling. These are not like, he's not really being interviewed. He's just yelling survey results at people.
Mr. President, speak louder! 88 to 11. We're having a lot of great polls that just came out. Polls and lots of other polls, but you see the polls. A very important debate. Now, she wants to do another one because she got beaten tonight, but I don't know. Why wouldn't you look at her? The polls are indicating that we got 90%, 60%, 70%.
Can you imagine watching that debate and saying, you know, I bet 90% of the country will watch this and come away thinking that Donald Trump won it. And then just more of this ranting, yelling out random numbers.
Why wouldn't you look at her? The polls are indicating that we got 90%, 60%, 72%, 71%, and 89%.
Where are you getting these numbers from?
Very good. But beyond the polls, I felt very good. I had a good time doing it.
Yeah. One of those polls was like an on-screen survey on Newsmax. So not exactly the pinnacle of polling. Trump was, I believe this is with CNN's Caitlin Collins. She said, why wouldn't you just answer, would you veto a federal abortion ban? This came up multiple times, and Trump did say J.D. Vance was not authorized to speak on his behalf on it, again, raising questions about that relationship. But Trump just kind of walking away without answering.
You were asked if you would veto a national abortion ban, and you did not say yes or no. What is your answer to that?
So all you have to do is check it. It was a perfect answer on abortion, and I've done a great job in that, and I brought our country together. Thank you.
Yes or no?
Didn't you hear Trump's answer on abortion, Caitlin? He just told you it was a perfect answer on abortion. And then Trump in complete denial that the debate didn't go well.
You're worried that, that you took the bait from Kamala Harris tonight. What would you say?
Great debate tonight. This was my best debate. We had a 92% rating in one poll. We had an 86% rating in another. We had 77% in another. We won every one of the polls that came out tonight, and there were quite a few of them.
You were asked if you would veto a national abortion ban, and
All right, so then we get to the abortion part again. So Trump, in a completely deluded state of mind, desperately wandering around the spin room, saying, I won everything. Look at Newsmax. Look at Jack Posobiec's Twitter poll, clearly I won. Overnight, the delusions did not correct. Let's discuss. This morning, Donald Trump called in with a strained voice to Fox and Friends. This was at like 6:30 in the morning. Trump was in the spin room till seemingly midnight and then left. He probably didn't sleep very much. I wouldn't either after such a disastrous debate performance. And this morning he called into Fox and Friends and he's insisting he won the thing. Listen, if Trump really believes he won it, he should want another debate, which we'll talk about in a moment. So let him think it.
It was a heated debate. Less than 2 months until Election Day.
Joining us right now on the phone to react after that very busy night, the 45th President of the United States, to the GOP presidential nominee, Donald Trump. Mr. President, how do you feel about the night? 105 minutes long. You've done this before. I think your 8th one. What is your review of your performance?
Well, I looked at the poll numbers. I listened to Harold Ford. I don't know what he was watching because I think he wasn't watching the debate that I was in yesterday. I think we did great. It was 3-1. It was a rigged deal, as I assumed it would be, because when you looked at the fact that they were correcting everything and not correcting with her.
And again, we've discussed this already. Remember, we've already established when Trump said he won in 2020, it was corrected because it's not a matter of opinion. He lost in 2020. When Trump said there are post-birth abortions in some states, it was corrected because it's just an obvious and total lie. Whether higher or lower tax rates are better for this, that's not really about fact checking, right? There are conflicting philosophies on that. But Trump wants you to believe that because he told ridiculous lies that were corrected, that it was all biased against him.
We knew it when it was 100% good coverage for her over the last month or last year. I looked at it and only bad coverage of me, no matter what. The press is so dishonest in this country, it's amazing. Now, I didn't mind because, frankly, I was pretty sure that's what they would do. CNN was much more honorable. The debate we had with Biden was a much more honorably run debate. But this was incredible. I mean,
understand what Trump is saying is, I won the debate against Biden, so that was properly run. I got destroyed and decimated in the debate with Kamala Harris. So by definition, it was an improperly run debate.
Everything, so many things I said were debunked, totally debunked, like Charlottesville, I have a list of 7 different things, and she could say anything she wanted, everything, every time I spoke, and my stuff was right, they'd correct you. I thought it was terrible from the standpoint of ABC. They're the most dishonest, in my opinion, the most dishonest news organization.
Right. I lost this debate by the most. Therefore, ABC is the worst by a long shot. Basically what Trump is telling us here. Now, of course, the debate performance was so good for Kamala Harris that she wants to debate Trump again. You may recall that a lot of other debates were floated between Trump and Kamala Harris, and no other debates have been agreed to so far. Kamala Harris's debate performance was so overwhelmingly good. And to put it a different way, her performance was fine, but Trump was so unhinged and out of control by comparison that it made her look really good. That immediately after the debate, the Harris campaign said, let's do another one. Let's do another one. This would be, of course, in addition to the October 1st debate between the vice presidential candidates, J.D. Vance and Tim Walz. There's a Washington Post piece about this. Vice President Kamala Harris wants another debate round with Donald Trump. The Democrats campaign announced after Tuesday's debate a desire for a second meetup before November. The decision to request another debate was made before both candidates took the stage, according to a person familiar with the plan. Trump has previously called for 3 debates, not immediately clear whether he would agree to another one. So here's my sense. The Trump campaign team is saying she wants another debate because she needs a good performance because last night was so bad. Chris LaCivita, who's a Trump campaign advisor, said, of course she wants another debate. They need cleanup. However, the overwhelming results from swing state voter focus groups, various polls and surveys, the overwhelming result is it was a disastrous night for Donald Trump. Now, if you ask me, do I think there will be another Trump-Harris debate? I don't. I think that behind the scenes, whether they tell him, sir, you don't need to do it because you're so good. Or they just lie and they say, hey, the debate rules are biased against you. Let's not do another one. Trump staffers behind the scenes obviously know that this was a disaster for Donald Trump. They don't want him to do this again. They're going to hope J.D. Vance can have a better performance against Tim Walz. Maybe he will, maybe he won't. And they don't want another one. So I would be shocked if the Trump team agrees to a debate. Publicly, they will likely say, this is an act of desperation from Kamala Harris because she messed up the first debate. We're not going to give her the time of day. And also, all of the rules would be biased against Donald Trump. The problem with that narrative is that Fox News has said, hey, we'll host the debate. And for Trump to say it would be biased against me if it would be on Fox News doesn't really work. Now, we'll talk about that more on today's bonus show. But the reason, if we're completely honest, Kamala Harris now insisting publicly we really want that next debate, it's because it went well. And Trump and people around him saying they only want the debate because it went so terribly is their misdirection because it was an utter disaster for Trump. We don't yet know what effect it'll have on the race. We have to wait and see. But it did not go well. I hope there's a second debate. I don't expect it. Remember, you can pre-order my book, The Echo Machine, at davidpakman.com/echo. We were at 1,647 pre-orders as of yesterday. I will let you know very soon where we find ourselves. Quick break, right back after this. Don't forget that the best way to support the David Pakman Show is by becoming a member, which gives you access to the daily bonus show, the regular show with no commercials. You also get access to our entire archive of every episode dating back a really long time and plenty of other awesome membership perks. Go to joinpakman.com, joinpakman.com. Failed former President Donald Trump has done everything wrong in his bid to return to the White House, and yet he still might return to the White House, even despite that disastrous debate performance last night. I want to talk about it with you. His fundraising is weak. Enthusiasm is waning. He's neck and neck with Kamala Harris in several key battleground states. His running mate is the hugely unpopular J.D. Vance. Trump's debate performance against Kamala Harris was completely unhinged. He spread the racist lie that Haitian migrants are eating people's pets, that Kamala Harris wants to perform transgender operations on illegal immigrants in prison. He kept lying that he won in 2020. He gave maybe the worst answer in history was when he was asked why he said that Kamala Harris wasn't black and then she was. So you zoom out and it's all such a disaster. It seems like the odds are increasingly stacked against Trump, but he still might win. In fact, he's favored to win in some models. And as bad as last night's debate was, it may not move the needle that much. How can this be possible? So let's break it down. First, fundraising. Fundraising is the lifeblood of any political campaign. Fuels advertisements, rallies, ground operations, every aspect of voter outreach. Trump's fundraising is lagging far behind Kamala Harris's. In August, Kamala Harris nearly tripled Trump's fundraising, bringing in $361 million compared to $130 for Trump. It's not a good sign for Trump, but we shouldn't get too comfortable. Remember that in 2016, Trump defeated Hillary Clinton with half the money that she raised. Fundraising is important, but it's not the only factor. And in addition to beating Trump in fundraising, Kamala Harris is also campaigning really aggressively. In the last month, she did rallies in New Hampshire, Pennsylvania, Georgia, Michigan, Wisconsin, North Carolina, Nevada. The rallies are packed for Harris. They're humiliating Trump's relatively small size, and this certainly speaks to enthusiasm for her, lack of enthusiasm for Trump. And even among Trump's staunchest supporters, there's a dip in enthusiasm compared to prior elections. Trump's favorability, especially among independents and moderates, not what it used to be. Kamala Harris's approval rating is up since she became the nominee. According to 538, her approval rating was 39 on July 1st. By September 9th, it was up to nearly 45. Trump is at 43. And yet, Trump still has this strong core of cult members that will support him no matter what. The core's not expanding. If anything, it's shrinking. Even within the Republican Party, he used to have complete control. There are signs of trouble. Liz Cheney, a so-called moderate who used to vote with Trump almost always, has endorsed Kamala Harris. Her dad, Dick Cheney, who's arguably been an even more destructive force than Trump on the global stage in a way, has endorsed Kamala Harris. Adam Kinzinger, another so-called moderate Republican who voted with Trump 90% of the time, he's endorsed Harris and spoke at the DNC, and many other prominent Republicans. Mitt Romney, Trump's own former Vice President Mike Pence, former National Security Advisor John Bolton, they have withheld endorsements. The media often portrays these anti-Trump Republicans as moderate. Their voting histories really aren't moderate. They have very similar voting track records to Trump or other extremists. But the difference is mostly, do they support Trump's attempt to stage a violent coup against a democratically elected president? That's a big issue. This trend suggests that even some of the most hardened Republicans are just sick of Trump, and that this will make it harder for him to generate the excitement he had in 2016. People don't like Trump's running mate either. You might recall that Trump had to find a new vice presidential running mate after he incited a violent mob on January 6th that threatened to publicly execute his last vice president, Mike Pence. Many of us were surprised about the selection of J.D. Vance, who not long ago compared Trump to Adolf Hitler. He's a charisma vacuum. Sarah Palin had more charisma than J.D. Vance. On the other hand, you've got Tim Walz, outstanding choice, effective rhetorician. His line about they're just plain weird has been a proven winner. He's got a record of progressive victories as governor of Minnesota. He's a likable guy. It's reflected in the polling. According to USA Today, Vance's favorability is 36 and Walz is 48. That's a significant gap. Vance brings nothing to the ticket. He's not helping Trump. He might be hurting Trump. So this all seems very bad for Donald Trump. But what ultimately matters is Trump's performance in a few key battleground states. According to Real Clear Politics, most of those states are straight up toss-ups. Trump is ahead in Arizona by 1.6. He's leading in North Carolina by 0.1. Kamala Harris leading in Nevada by 0.6, by 1.5 points in Wisconsin, by 1.2 in Michigan, leading Georgia by just 0.1, and a tie in Pennsylvania, and close to a tie in North Carolina. The election could come down to just one of those two states. So to be clear, Kamala Harris is doing better than Joe Biden was in these battleground states, without a doubt. It was necessary for what happened to have happened. But compared to the 2020 results, the polling gives Trump more electoral votes. And with these razor-thin margins, he could gain even more states. So it is very much anybody's race. Now, you look at national polls, they don't look much different. It's important to remember that national polls can be misleading because of the Electoral College system. Donald Trump can very much lose the popular vote, but still get 270 electoral votes. We saw it happen in 2016. Recently, Harris was ahead by just a little bit on 538, 2.7, 2.2 on the Silver Bulletin, and 1.1 in Real Clear Politics. That's a reversal from even just a week ago, but it's also a reversal from when Trump was winning by a lot. So the point is, the Trump campaign has seemed completely unprepared for running against someone other than Joe Biden. It has hurt Trump to be running against Kamala Harris. He's relying on stale, sexist personal attacks, criticizing her laugh, questioning the authenticity of her race. And it's sort of like a more convoluted version of the birther stuff against Barack Obama, but even dumber. That all being said, it is not obvious that Donald Trump is really going to lose this thing, because you have attacks that, as crazy as they are to the average person, are landing with your average Trumpist. And at the same time, we have a complete vacuum in terms of an ability to really, at the top level, describe and discuss the true disastrous impact of the policies that Donald Trump wants to implement. Suffice it to say, I don't see Trump-Vance rhetoric as convincing or inspiring to swing state voters. But the reality here overall is that despite Trump's fundraising struggles, the lack of enthusiasm, the deadlocked battleground states, the unfavorable national polling, he could still win. Let's take a closer look at the current state of the Electoral College. The map looks very similar to the 2020 map. The 2024 map, based on current polling, it could come down to Pennsylvania, which is currently tied, looks like this. Many key battleground states are within 1 percentage point. This makes the race very close. The only state that's flipped from 2020, according to some of the data, is Arizona, where Trump is leading by 1.6. How could Trump possibly win despite doing everything wrong? Well, number one, Trump and his allies have started to lay the groundwork to suppress the vote in some critical states. We've seen these voter suppression efforts on the rise, and there's a concerted push to make it harder for certain populations, especially those that typically vote for Democrats, to cast ballots. You've seen the strategies and the tactics: restrict mail-in voting, reduce the number of ballot drop boxes in Democratic leading areas, purge the voter rolls. This could very much impact the swing states. We interviewed Mark Elias. He's a prominent election lawyer. He highlighted on our show, these are widespread efforts. There is a real potential for them to affect who wins electorally. The Trump campaign is also looking at different legal strategies to shape election rules in their favor, challenge early voting procedures or ballot counting methods, or even how electoral votes are allocated. And the point here is create ambiguity and increase the chances of successfully contesting results that don't go their way. Now, maybe it'll involve faithless electors. Maybe it'll involve intimidation at polling places. It's all about creating doubt, creating legal chaos, and it should remind all of us of 2020. Now, if you combine that with aggressive gerrymandering efforts and other state-level strategies, there is the chance that this could also impact down ballot and how the House ends up landing. There's also the fact that the U.S. has relatively low voter turnout in general. In 2020, about 61% of the eligible voting population cast a ballot. So while the voter suppression efforts are real, we also need to contend with the fact that 40% of eligible voters just say, I'm not even interested. In a democracy, every effort to manipulate the vote is an attack on the system, and that gives Trump a path to victory that still exists. The stakes couldn't be higher. We all have to vote, no matter how bad Trump's debate performance was. This thing is not over, and it will still probably come down to under 250,000 votes in 3 to 5 states. And that's absolutely terrifying. If you value what we do at The David Pakman Show, remember to support us on Patreon. Go to patreon.com/David Pakman Show, where you can get access to behind the scenes videos, the daily bonus show, the commercial-free daily show. You can support the show for as little as $2 a month. Check it out at patreon.com/David Pakman Show. Well, it may be over. Taylor Swift has endorsed Kamala Harris. Now, I'm not kidding. Although I am not personally a fan of Taylor Swift's music, I very much respect the fact that she takes a political risk to say what she believes. She did it when she endorsed Biden previously, and she's doing it again. And right-wingers are absolutely furious. Good for Taylor Swift, announcing after the debate in a picture with a cat, she would be endorsing Kamala Harris. She said, like many of you, I watched the debate tonight. If you haven't already, now is a great time to do your research on the issues at hand and the stances these candidates take on the topics that matter to you the most. As a voter, I make sure to watch and read everything I can about their proposed policies and plans for this country. Recently, I was made aware that AI of, quote, me falsely endorsing Donald Trump's presidential run was posted to his site. It really conjured up my fears around AI and the dangers of spreading misinformation. It brought me to the conclusion that I need to be very transparent about my actual plans for this election as a voter. The simplest way to combat misinformation is with the truth. I will be casting my vote for Kamala Harris and Tim Walz in the 2024 election. I'm voting for Kamala Harris because she fights for the rights and causes I believe need a warrior to champion them. I think she's a steady-handed, gifted leader, and I believe we can accomplish so much more in this country if we are led by calm and not chaos. I was so heartened and impressed by her selection of running mate Tim Walz, who has been standing up for LGBTQ rights, IBF, and women's right to and a woman's right to her own body for decades. I've done my research and I've made my choice. Your research is all yours to do, and the choice is yours to make. I also want to say, especially to first-time voters, remember that in order to vote, you have to be registered. I also find it's much easier to vote early. I'll link where to register and find early voting dates and info in my story. With love and hope. Taylor. You know, what's brilliant about this is that while I believe she was eventually going to make this endorsement regardless, she is actually suggesting, I'm doing this because those MAGA people made a fake AI version of me supposedly endorsing Trump. So now I'm telling you I'm actually endorsing Kamala Harris, sort of hitting them with the, you brought this on yourself, and my real endorsement of Kamala Harris will do so much more to hurt Trump than your fake endorsement of what it looked like me endorsing Donald Trump was. I think that this is absolutely a great thing. There is huge cultural cachet right now for Taylor Swift. And I do think it's also important to point out that while there is a risk to Taylor Swift of speaking out like this, it doesn't really seem to hurt her. She spoke out and endorsed Biden in 2020 and then had one of the most successful concerts in American history. But let's talk about that next, because Donald Trump is not happy with this at all. This morning, Donald Trump called into Fox and Friends, and it was brought up to him, hey, Taylor Swift has endorsed Kamala Harris. And Donald Trump said, she's going to pay a price for this. A threat to Taylor Swift. Your ticket sales and your music streams are going to be hurt.
Just to finish up on that point then.
By the way, Lawrence is doing a very good job, I have to say. He really is.
He's doing a great. Hey, I've got a quick question for you. Out of nowhere, after the debate last night, Taylor Swift endorsed Kamala Harris. What do you think?
Well, I actually like Mrs. I actually like Mrs. Mahomes much better, if you want to know the truth. She's a big Trump fan. I was not a Taylor Swift fan. It was just a question of time. She couldn't. You couldn't possibly endorse Biden. You look at Biden, you couldn't possibly endorse him. But she's a very liberal person. She seems to always endorse a Democrat, and she'll probably pay a price for it at the in the marketplace.
Uh-oh.
But no, I like Brittany. I think Brittany's great. Brittany got a lot of news last week. She's a big MAGA fan. That's the one I like much better than Taylor Swift.
Right. Brittany is
Mahomes.
Yeah, they're Mahomes. They're great friends.
The wife of the great quarterback, and he is a great quarterback.
My favorite team from Kansas.
Yeah. To counter, I love that. To counteract the fact that Taylor Swift has endorsed Trump, let me explain to you who the wife of a football player that Trump is referring to as an alternative to the endorsement from Taylor Swift is. You immediately realize it doesn't have the same cachet when the Fox hosts are trying to explain to you who Trump is talking about that likes Trump. So listen, when Taylor Swift endorsed Biden, you had these MAGA people going, she's going to pay a price for it. She's going to pay a price for it. And then she had a historically successful tour, has paid no price for it, is probably as important in the sort of cultural narrative in the United States right now and globally as she has ever been. Oh, well, now she's endorsing Harris and she's going to pay a price for it. She's probably not. And if she does, she's going to be okay. I don't know if she's a billionaire or close to it, but she's going to be fine. Trump's just upset. That's what it is. J.D. Vance, in a completely deranged series of posts and statements, has repeated the blacks are eating cats conspiracy. Now, let me explain to you what this is. This is the conspiracy theory that undocumented Haitian migrants are going to Springfield, Ohio, stealing people's cats and dogs and eating them. Now, it's been quite widely debunked. JD doesn't really care. He posted to Twitter, months ago, I raised the issue of Haitian illegal immigrants draining social services and generally causing chaos all over Springfield, Ohio. Reports now show that people have had their pets abducted and eaten by people who shouldn't be in this country. Where is our border czar? J.D. Vance also weighing in on this during a hearing.
Chairman Brown, I'd like to ask unanimous consent to submit a letter for the record from the city of Springfield and our state, the southwestern part of our state, which I think highlights a very real example of this particular concern, straight from the horse's mouth itself. Now, this letter, I want to quote from it. Springfield has seen a surge in population through immigration that has significantly impacted our ability as a community to produce enough housing opportunities for all. Springfield's Haitian population has increased 15 to 20,000 over the last 4 years in a community of under 60,000 previous residents, putting a significant strain on our resources and ability to provide ample housing for all of our residents. And end quote there. And Mike.
Without objection, so.
Thank you. In my conversations with folks in Springfield, it's not just housing. They're trying to build 5,000 new housing units, which is a very Herculean task in a town of about 55,000 people. But it's also hospital services, it's school services, there are a whole host of ways in which.
All right, so J.D. Vance is fully in on this. It even bled over to Fox News.
I mean, the whole problem here, as Bill was saying, population 58,000. They've got 20,000 illegal immigrants that have flooded into this place. They're taking over the city. They're taking people's pets and killing them and eating them, Sheriff.
Well, this is a tremendous tragedy, and unfortunately, that's like a lot of other towns across America today.
It also happens to be untrue. The story's been debunked extensively. The Haitians that have gone to Springfield, Ohio, are not undocumented immigrants. They're in the United States legally. They went to Springfield, Ohio, because of a lot of job openings in recent years in Springfield, Ohio. And there were actually programs to bring in legal immigrants because there was an availability of jobs. This stuff made it all the way to the top, where during yesterday's debate, Donald Trump said they're eating cats and dogs in Springfield, Ohio. So we see that some of these start as little kernels of something. Oh, they have litter boxes for students that identify as cats in some school. And it's never true, but it spreads and it grows and it spreads and it grows. And this one got all the way up to J.D. Vance and even Donald Trump. Really sad state of affairs. On today's bonus show, Fox News is saying, hey, they want another debate. We'll host it. Please pick us. We'll host it. I also want to follow up about the Russian influencer cash indictment, because MAGA influencers are now scrambling. And many of them may end up getting shut down on YouTube. And Speaker MAGA Mike Johnson is pushing ahead on this bill that you must have proof of citizenship in order to be able to vote, even though you already can't vote if you're not a citizen. This bill faces very dim prospects, to put it lightly, but MAGA Mike Johnson is pushing forward. All of those stories and more on the bonus show, which you can sign up for at joinpacman.com. Also, please remember to pre-order my forthcoming book, The Echo Machine, available in audiobook, ebook, and paper book format. Everywhere books are sold, you should at this point be able to call any independent bookstore and say, I'd like to order The Echo Machine by David Pakman. They should be able to do it from Beacon Press. You can get it on Amazon. You can get it on Barnes & Noble, bookshop.org, Audible, Apple Books, Apple iBooks, eBooks, Apple Audiobooks. I have no clue what it's called. I've never used anything Apple. All of it, okay? I'll update you on pre-orders very soon. Speak to you on the bonus show, and I'll be back tomorrow. Thanks a lot for watching today's show. I just want to take a second to tell you about today's sponsors. The only VPN to prove multiple times in court that they have no record of your internet activity is private internet access. Each time the judge said, show us the person's internet activity, and private internet access said, sorry, we don't have it. Their systems are also regularly audited by Deloitte to verify the no-log policy. And it's the only VPN with open source code, so the whole world can see that nothing is being logged. Private internet access is giving my audience 83% off, which is just $203 a month, plus 4 extra months for free. Go to piavpn.com/DavidP. The link is down below.